if you want to become a valuable coach, you got to have distinct values. Today, I got a guest here with me. He's one of my homies for a very long time, probably the longest relationship that I've had with coaches. I got here Coach James Hoskins.
Thanks, Royce. I appreciate being here.
Dude, I'm pumped. So, guys, really quick, this is kind of the best practice section. So, it's not going to be just like the interviews you've been watching. This is going to be more of a conversation because the topic we're going to cover today is what makes a great coach. Okay, so I really want to dive into that just to give you guys like some context so we're not just like slinging it from the hip. James and I have been coaching for nearly 2 decades. And then prior to starting Nevada Fitness, we had the 24-hour fitness relationship.
The old days.
Right? So James has seen me grow from like baby coach to like teen coach to be more of an adult coach. So a lot of these things we're not speaking in theory. This is like we've been practicing it, we've been experimenting it, we've been refining it. And it's a constant refinement. Now we have like a concrete theory that we can actually test, right? So I'm really pumped to kind of go over this because I didn't have all these values at first. And now we're so almost on purpose driving these values to people so we can actually like keep the clients. Not only keep the clients, but make sure that they're actually getting results.
Absolutely. I think, like you said, we've been testing this and perfecting this and trying this and failing at this and succeeding. Oh, that works. And I think now, as we're decades into this, I'm in my 40s, you're in your 30s, we've been doing this for a long time. These are the things that work.
Yes.
This is no longer an experiment. These are the things that work. So I'm pumped to get into them. And I think it's something for us. We've had it as our values for a long time. We just didn't really know it were our values. They were just something we did. It's something you woke up and you did. You went to the gym and you did this. You at a class, you did this.
Yeah.
You met a new person, you did this. And you're like, that's successful.
Yeah.
Why don't we just make this as something that everybody should be doing? So
this is.
I love it.
And guys, I'm bringing James here because he actually did bring this up. You know, I complain a lot to you. That's a thing. You've probably seen the most complaining from me is probably to you. And then you really bring up some of these things. Well, let's just put them on a list. You know, one of the big things that was a huge frustration of mine was replicating amazing coaches. And we brought in so many at one point, and some stuck and some had to go. And then I had that conversation with you at one point. I was like, dude, I don't know what's going on. What makes a good coach? What makes an awful coach? And then we just listed them out. And then you were like, what are some of the common attributes? And I think it was really, really cool to really do that because it wasn't as clear as what it's about to be today, but it was kind of just like a rough draft of what this was. And guys, some of these values that I'm about to speak right now, James has. And if you've been in some of his classes, it's probably because of those things. And I try to do a blueprint of like, how close can I make someone speak, act like James? And that's been like my whole mission. Now, partly I do believe that some of it is God-given and it's skill set, but I also think it can be trained.
Oh, absolutely. Anything that's out there, and like I think about if it's possible, it's possible. If one person's done it, it can be done again. Like we always talk, the 4-minute mile.
Yeah.
Once the barrier was broken, it's open. And where we live now and the time we live, you guys are going to see this on YouTube.
Yes.
You can watch this 100 times. You can rewind it. You can play it back. You can watch it before you go and coach a class or meet someone. Man, let's use that technology to improve and share it. So I think that is something that now, why not? Let's share our gift because like you said, sometimes it's God-given, but sometimes you had to work for it. And I know a lot of stuff was given to me by my family and my friends. And you were my first coach in, the functional fitness space. And, I appreciate some of what you've given to me, and I share it. One of the most simple things I do is something I stole from you. And it's
or borrow.
Borrow, right? We'll use borrow, and
Yeah.
I'll say borrow because it's something just introducing yourself, or it's the sound when I coach that boop.
Yeah.
It's the simplest thing, but how do you get people to move where you want them to move and when you want them to move? Sometimes you got to give them a beep. Sometimes you got to tell them when to do it, right?
I do like to do a lot of sound effects.
Yeah, sound effects. So that's the smallest thing I do is from you. People love it.
It's hilarious.
They think it's mine.
Yeah.
No, it's absolutely yours.
It actually isn't mine. I saw it happen in an ESPN commercial. I think you know the announcer. He just does a lot of sound effects. I was like, that's attractive to me. You know, I listen to it and then I just use that.
It's little things.
Part of my conversation.
It's absolute little things.
Okay, but anyways, let's get this thing started. But before we really dive into the 5 values that we believe that make great coaching, I think it's important to define the definition of what a coach is. So for those of you guys that are actual fitness coaches and trainers, it's going to make sense. But this can actually apply to every coaching realm. Like you're in the finance game and you actually use some of these values, right? You could do it as a parent. You can do it as a teacher if you have students, and you can do it as a leader. I think some of the best leaders have these values. And it's just a theory. It's a thesis, but it's not just a thesis. We've been applying it for a very long time, so I'm really excited to kind of go over it. But the definition of a coach, and it's taken us a long time to define it, but a coach is someone who has a vehicle that's transporting a valuable asset from point A to point B. Whoops, I need to turn that off. That's okay. But anyways, there's 3 major components into that definition. The first is A to B, and that's what we call goals. And for a coach and student relationship to happen, I think it's so important to have defined goals. Because we've been in that situation. James, have you ever had someone that you tried to coach that had no defined goals?
The hardest thing I've ever done is because you don't know what you're actually doing. You don't know what's success. You don't know what failure is. You're just kind of out there. And you know what I compared it to? Gym class in high school.
It is, yeah.
If you were an athlete in high school and you played a sport, gym class in high school was nowhere near what that sport felt like. You're like, what are we doing? I don't really know. And that's a simple explanation of it, but people like to run towards something.
Yes.
Or away from something. It's really boring to just run.
Yeah. I think that's one of the more important pieces. If you really are in the coaching relationship, you got to have a defined goal. Otherwise, it's going to feel like gym class. To me, it feels like I'm just a cheerleader. And there's nothing wrong with cheerleaders, but it's like I'm just cheering you on, which is fine.
But I dated a cheerleader in high school, so come on, be easy on them.
For real? You're a cheerleader in high school?
No, I dated a cheerleader.
Oh, okay. I was like, dude, James, I've never knew.
You see me? Come on.
I don't know, man. You might be you know how you're just carrying people?
I was not that buff.
Yeah. Actually, those guys are super buff. And they're super agile too.
Yeah.
Okay, anyways. So that's the first part. Like you have to transport that person from point A to point B. The second component to this is there's a vehicle. And that vehicle could be anything. For us, the vehicle is functional training, personal training, nutrition, accountability. Whatever that vehicle is, the vehicle can be shaped in so many different ways, and you're taking them there to there, right? And then the final piece of this definition is the asset has to be valuable. And that's more of a coaching eye. And I think a lot of times, a lot of coaches look at clients as clients, but they don't look at them as valuable, which already hurts the relationship. Mm-hmm. Because when you often see someone, James, and you're coaching them, how do you perceive them in that lens?
So I perceive them a few ways. I perceive them as the person they are.
Yeah.
And the hardest thing is to make zero assumptions.
Yes.
That's the first thing I do. And all right, they're just the person they are. But the next thing that I start thinking about, perceiving them as not necessarily my vehicle, but my billboard.
Wow.
Think about if I can show the world what's possible through you,
Yeah.
maybe you can show someone else it's possible. So I had this thought, and it was, in what we do, we change people's lives through fitness.
100%. That's our vehicle.
Doctors, lawyers, how many people have you helped that have gone and helped somebody else?
Too many.
Too many, right?
Yeah.
So that's when I think about their billboards, their advertisements, they are disciples.
Mm-hmm.
They speak the word.
Mm-hmm.
Faith is different. It's about what you believe in. But if you put enough into somebody and they become that billboard, they're like, oh my God,
Yeah.
that's the guy that loses 100 pounds. Well,
Mm-hmm.
you should go see this guy. He helps me lose 100 pounds. But then, how'd you do it? He's
Yes.
a billboard. He's an advertisement. He's a disciple. He starts spreading all those things that says, well, change this, do this. This is what I did.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't have to keep saying everything. It's just like YouTube. You can say it once, spread it once, and let things compound and explode. So that's what I think about as a person. They're an asset. And what do assets do? They grow.
They expand. Yeah, there you go.
Or they shrink.
There's your
And
finance.
real assets grow.
Yeah.
And with the time and effort and what you invest in them, it compounds like money.
Yeah. Dude, I love that. I've never heard it that way, the billboard.
Mm-hmm.
But in that essence, like if you guys ever been coached by James, he'll look at you at a particular way. When he knows you're a billboard, he sees through your soul. And then when he's coaching, the tonality is different. He's like, oh, you're going to be such a great billboard. You're going to create such a huge impact. And then when you're speaking from that type of like mindset, it's beautiful, right? You just let like whatever they've done in the past and all their limiting beliefs, you park it and you're like, no, I'm going to work here and I'm also going to get you to what everything is possible.
Absolutely. So, I talk about, I work with, an athlete one-on-one.
Mm-hmm.
And when he came to me, he had these goals.
Yes.
And they're all different.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the small ones that he didn't know was to run.
Wow.
And it was, what do you mean run? Well, my PT told me I shouldn't run.
Yeah.
Okay. We'll fix that.
Just park that.
We'll just park that, right? I know that is something that you want to do, that most people want to do, that you don't want to have a limitation on you.
Mm-hmm.
Over the course, that was a thing that we attacked. And when you gave someone the gift of making them feel like they can do something that they were told they couldn't.
Yeah. Dude, they tear up.
It's the most powerful thing ever. And now you've given someone a gift, and now he wants to give to someone else.
Yeah. And they do.
People give. You give to give, right? Like you talked about the episode with Joe.
Mm-hmm.
Man, you're not here to make $1 million. $1 million is cool, but you're here to make and help and give and spread. And, we've talked about this, and this is going to be one of those. A part of why I coach goes back to one of the first conversations we had when we started our development.
Mm-hmm.
And it was write your own eulogy. You remember that one?
That was a hard one, yeah.
That was a hard one, but, something that I took it as your own eulogy, but have your own funeral. And who's invited?
Yeah.
Who's coming?
Yeah.
What are they going to say? What would they say at your party? Or are they going to not show up?
Yeah.
That's kind of the way I think about, coaching and passing on all the gifts and the love and everything that we do. You're creating billboards, but I'm trying to make it so when I write my eulogy and those who write it for me, these are all the things I did.
Yeah.
These are all the things that were passed on, and all I did was give.
Yeah.
That's it.
And guys, if you've never done a eulogy, write your eulogy, but don't write it as like you saying it. Write it from a third person. Mm-hmm. And what James is talking about is like, I think I made you do 3 eulogies. Mm-hmm. Like, what did your wife say about you? What did your colleagues say about you? What did your people say about you? And when you write this eulogy down, it's refreshing because you don't talk about the millions of dollars. You didn't talk about your 6-pack, right? You didn't talk about X, Y, and Z investment. You talk about all of your actions. And it's like, it's almost refreshing because you read it and you're like, that's all I need to do. I just need to give.
All you need to do is give and serve and know that it's not about you.
Yeah, it's so good. Yeah.
It's not. As a trainer, as a coach, it's not about you. I
Yeah.
promise you.
Yeah.
The moment you realize it's not about you, and it's not an equitable relationship, because relationships,
Yeah.
not many of them are 50-50.
Yeah.
And a coach to athlete relationship will never be, but you don't want it to be, right?
Yeah.
You're giving
To
all of
give.
the
Yeah.
things inside of you. You're giving knowledge that you spent 2 days reading this book
Yeah.
for a message
For one
that
message
you're going to
delivered.
give to an athlete
Mm-hmm.
in a 5-minute session, that they're going to be like, oh my God, you're not going to make them read that book, but you're going to give them that gift.
Yes.
And that was the point. You're just here to give. You give 2 hours of your time away from your son,
Mm-hmm.
so you can give that gift to somebody else, because you're not going to say, hey, go read this book. I read this book. This is the best thing that I think fits for you right now.
Yeah.
Boom.
And I don't think a lot of people understand that, right? You explore this book that's going to take you a whole week to really digest, and then you get one nugget.
One nugget.
And then that one nugget was for that one person. And guys, this is what I'm telling you, why James is one of my greatest coaches, because he does this on automatic. And he just does it. He'll work 10 hours just to get that one sentence out that's going to pivot someone to going from super sad to a place where they're just like, there's hope, right? Getting a place from someone that's really, really injured to a place where you're like, oh man, I feel less pain. The type of coaching James does really, really well, oftentimes you'll see in that hour, but this guy has put in hours of time, not only in himself, like this is what makes one of the other one of the principles we'll go over, which is growth, right? That makes a really, really good coach, which is going to be fun. So you guys ready to go over these values? So James, I'm going to ask you the first one, and we could just ping pong it back. But when we were sitting down together, I think it was me, you, and like a few other managers, and we just listed it out. And one of the most important values that popped up, that through line for us, was curiosity.
Best one in the book.
Best one in the book. So the best coaches often don't have the answers. The best coaches asks the right questions. Let's unpack that really quick.
Curiosity is my favorite thing in the world. Mm-hmm. Because as a coach, you get to do a lot of listening.
Yes.
You don't have to do a lot of talking. You get to do a lot of learning about somebody. And what you realize is someone who's coming to you for something, you get to find out how much they know about it. Yes. Before you start telling them all a bunch of stuff they already know, tell me what you know. Tell me what you've been going through. Tell me about your experience. Let me hear what you've been through so I can see if I've been through it or I can relate. And I will, like we've talked about this, your first couple sessions with somebody, they will talk 90% of the time, and you'll just do a lot of listening and ask really good questions. And I think that as a coach, you ask really good questions. Mm-hmm. And I'm talking the questions that you open it up and they can't stop talking. It's, how'd you get here today? Yes. How did you get to this place? And that might be, how'd you get 25 pounds overweight? Or how did you get to the place that you get up at 4 a.m. to work on yourself? How'd you get there? Because, again, each of those questions is going to tell you something.
It's huge. It's going to tell you something, one, and we've been in that situation before. And for the audience that's listening, you tell someone something. You're like, hey, I can't lose 20 pounds. And then they tell you how much food to eat almost immediately. Mm-hmm. Right? But you're eating really well, but what they didn't account for was your sleep or your stress.
All the other things.
Right? And all those questions that you allude to often open that up. You're like, okay, cool. Like, what's your sleep like? What season in life are you in?
That curiosity, that just you get to ask those questions, because we've talked about it. We are blessed with these wives that do everything for us.
Yes.
That we may not live the same life as someone else. If you work this 9 to 5 and you have 4 kids and you got to do this and you've got to do this and you've got to do this, you may not have the same life as a person who we get to put our fitness first
Mm-hmm.
every day, because we have these beautiful people at home that are going to help us do that.
Mm-hmm.
And then we start our day. Not everybody's like that. Not
Yeah.
everybody starts their day in a place where they're here to make themselves better. So you kind of understand, okay, well, what's your day start like? Okay, it starts with your kids jumping in your bed, and then you run downstairs, and then you take them to school, and then you run to work. When is the first moment you get to breathe? And they're like, well, at 5:30 when I'm running to the gym. So is that why you're always so stressed when you get here?
Yeah.
Is that why it's a little tough for you to get here? That's why
you're
it
5
takes
minutes late.
5 minutes late. Is that why it takes 30 minutes for you just to
Yeah.
get into it?
Yeah.
That's okay, because once you know it, you can approach it. You can give them tools. You can give them the gift of saying, hey, you know what? I get it.
Yes.
I get how tough your life is now that you've told me.
Mm-hmm.
I have an opportunity that you can attack, and you can do it little things at a time. But the best thing about curiosity is you never attack. You always smile and ask. Tell me more, right? My favorite statement, tell me more. Why?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They will tell you as much as they can, or as much as you'll let them.
Yeah.
And as much as they tell you, it's going to help you. As a coach,
Mm-hmm.
if you know that an athlete is addicted to sugar,
Mm-hmm.
you know that's it. The
Yeah.
first thing you do can't be pull sugar away today. It's
Just
not going to be
tell me
the
more
best thing.
about it.
Tell me more about it. Tell me about your addiction to
Yeah.
sugar. Where is it? Is it a family thing? Yeah, well, growing up, when we did good things, they gave us sugar.
Mm-hmm.
So when I go to work and I do something good, I pull something sweet out of my drawer.
Mm-hmm.
So when I get home and I've had a good day, I pull something sweet out of my drawer. When I go to the gym and I've had a good workout, I go home and I pull something sweet out of my drawer.
Yeah.
When I go and my kids have gotten an A,
Mm-hmm.
what do? We go get
eat.
ice cream. So you may not realize that they have a family culture, and that's one of those things where weight loss programs like Noom,
Mm-hmm.
they go to the psychological side of it, because it's
all psychological.
it's all psychological, right? I grew up in a household that we were addicted to sugar. I'm still addicted to sugar. People know this. I'm a cookie monster.
Yep.
I know who I am, though.
And he has a 6-pack.
Man, I have a 6-pack. But just know who you are, right? It's called Oreos Nabs. Give it a follow, Instagram.
Yeah.
But it's one of those things where once you know who someone is,
Mm-hmm.
you can help them. Before you know who they are, you can't.
So I want to unpack this lesson really fast, because you threw a lot of bombs in there.
Mm-hmm.
So when James asked this question, I see this happening. I'm always super observant, because I'm like, how is this guy's classes bigger than the other person's? And they keep coming back for more torture, which is theoretically torture.
Mm-hmm.
But they come in with smiles. James asks questions so much that the people not only build awareness, they also understand how to fix it. And James didn't even do anything. They're just like, yeah, I keep eating sugar. I need to stop. And you know what? Maybe I just need to get rid of it. And then you're just like, tell me more. And it's like, yeah, I think you should do that. Yeah, which is way more powerful than just being like, stop eating sugar, bro.
We have to decide things on our own. The decide, right? There's nothing more powerful than a decision. It's the dopamine, right?
Yes.
One of my favorite books, The Rise of Superman. It's about the flow state and dopamine and how it hits. And
Yeah.
the moment you set a goal is the biggest rush of dopamine you're going to get. The decision is the dopamine. The second is the achievement.
Yes.
You wish it was the achievement. Super Bowls are cool when we decide we're going to put everything on the line to accomplish a goal. You've never been more charged up. When you decided to do this podcast, that was the day you were charged up.
It was.
Not the day you recorded the first one.
Oh, I was charged up before that.
Yeah, way before that. So when the person, the client, the child, the adult, the team member who's on your team, who's new, who you're trying to motivate, once they've decided that they want to do it, here's the keys, here's the wheel, press the gas, right?
Yeah.
Let's go.
Yeah.
And that is the best part about when you get an athlete that decides that he wants something.
And not you.
Not me, right?
And James, I'm just going to share what makes you extremely successful in what you do. By the way, guys, if you don't know James, he's been a salesperson also in 24 Hour Fitness. and we say something like, we call it kill shots.
Mm-hmm.
James probably has one of the most kill shots in terms of signing memberships up than I've ever known. You've probably given me more than 90% of my business.
We talked about that a while.
Yeah.
That was my favorite thing was my time at 24 Hour Fitness. So when I was at 24 Hour Fitness, I was a sales manager.
Yeah.
So as a sales manager, what do? You listen to people tell you why they want to sign up for the gym.
And I observed that, yeah.
And then you listen to them cancel on
Yeah.
why they didn't get to their goal. That was the best.
I forgot
the
about
best
that.
experience, right? So this is the best part. So I love this is my favorite part about 24 Hour Fitness, and we've talked about decisions, right?
Yeah.
Dopamine. When people decide to sign up for a gym, it's an opportunity to have to change their life.
Yes.
Momentum is there,
Mm-hmm.
but the second opportunity is the day they try to quit.
Yeah.
The day someone decides that they want to quit, I'm done with this. I'm done. I'm not doing this anymore. They would come and see me.
You were actually pumped for it. I was like, yeah, let's go.
Let's go. Come on over. And not that you would take people back, but be excited to cancel their membership.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, but I just want to know why, right? I just want to know why you didn't get to your goal. Is there something we didn't do? Is there something you could have done? Is there another circumstance? Because that's the thing at 24 Hour Fitness that we explored. A lot of times it wasn't about the person.
Dude, not at all.
My kids started soccer. And if you're a parent and your kid plays a sport and you think they're going to be good at it, you put a lot of time, energy, and effort into that. And that pulls people out. Or it's the holiday, or it's somebody sick, or, right? And what I learned is there was always something else that kept them from getting to their goal that wasn't their goal. And if you spend enough time with somebody, they'll tell you. And then it's your chance to see if you can help them fix it. Because if they're like, I want to cancel my membership. Well, why? Well, I was supposed to lose 30 pounds because they got this wedding coming up, and I'm not going to get there, so I'm just going to cancel it. Well, why didn't you get to your goal? Well, it was hard to get here after work. Well, absolutely. Well, is anything going to change if you don't change anything? That's when those times where you just keep asking questions, and people are like, well, I don't know what I can do. Perfect.
And then I'm in the back.
Now it's the opportunity where once you said, I don't know, one more question. Do you want help?
Yeah.
Because that's the other thing. They have to decide they want help.
Yes.
If they don't want it yet,
they're not ready.
They're not ready, right? You take that step back. But once they say, I need help, what can we do?
Yes.
We, as a team, me, you, and whoever else you got. And that's the moment for me where I say, we got this thing.
Yeah.
Me, you have now decided we're going to get to your goal because you've got another, little splash of dopamine. I'm ready to get there. And what is it? Let's make a new plan. Let's take a look at that plan. Oh, it didn't work? What do we need to tweak?
Yeah.
Let's now collaborate with somebody.
And that's when you always pull me in. It's
right?
hilarious.
And that's a part of our thing, right? I don't know how close we are, but when it's time to collaborate, this is the perfect opportunity because now you get a team of people instead of two guys in a foxhole, right? Yeah. Two guys in a foxhole is not as powerful as a platoon.
It is, yeah.
So.
Dude, this is masterful because, one, I remember this. I'm going back. I actually, I was behind you when this was happening. And you did a small synopsis, but you did some more masterful things in there.
We did you did all the sales things, but it wasn't about sales. It was about people. Yeah. Right? So one of my favorite books, again, we share books for words. Emotional Intelligence 2.0 is one of my favorite books because it gets you prepared for people's stuff they're going to dump on you. Yeah. And your reaction is it, right? If somebody says, oh my God, I'm allergic or addicted to sugar. I just can't not eat cookies every day. And you're like, they're like, oh my God, did I just tell them too much? Or if you're like, they say all of that and you're just like, I get it.
There's no judgment. There's you're like, dude, that makes sense.
I get it. I understand. And they're like, okay. Well, this also, right? And then the wall comes down, and then they open their book up, and then they tell you their story. And once someone tells you their story, you can again help them.
Dude, it was insane. So yeah, you said I was watching you at that one conversation. This was a long time ago, and you were like, "How long you been working on this?" And then the guy was like, "For like 7 months." In 7 months, and you haven't reached out yet? It's like that must have been kind of frustrating. I'm taking notes, by the way. And there's another thing that you don't know, but I stocked all of your hours. Like, when is James coming in? Because I'm just gonna work out those times. Because every time I was there, you teed off and was like, "Hey, like I think I can help you. There's this guy upstairs, right? He's kind of young, but I'm telling you, he has been completely changing people's lives left and right. You don't have to do anything right now. You just got to just meet him." You didn't sell anything. So a lot of them, you're just like, "Dude, don't even buy anything. Just train with him for an hour. I'm going to set you up. Let me go see if he has an availability." And then bam.
That was our partnership. So our
Yeah.
partnership was just hey, I think I have a person. And my goal was to learn as much as I could.
Yeah.
So when I gave them to you, you could at least know the book you were reading.
Yeah.
You could, I've read the front cover. I've read the first chapter.
Yeah.
I've read the back cover. Okay, we're going to figure out the middle, but I know where we need to go.
Mm-hmm.
And when you can pass on somebody's pain,
Mm-hmm.
and hand it off to somebody you've collaborated with. And for
Mm-hmm.
you as a coach, sometimes it's good to hand stuff off.
Dude,
You can't
yeah.
be everybody's everything,
Not at all,
right?
yeah.
That's the one thing that I've learned. Can't be everybody's everything. And
Yeah.
the best thing I do is hand people off and receive things back. Even with my athletes now, I work with Dr. Joe and Erica. I think
Yeah.
they're Pillar Kinetics now.
Yeah.
My athletes will go to them and it'll be, "Hey, I'm having, an issue with this.
Mm-hmm.
You know what? Maybe I'm going to go see Dr. Joe. Dr. Joe White is awesome. He'll take care of you. I need to go see him as well."
Mm-hmm.
But the same way I partner with the guys at Ageless
Yeah.
Performance Recovery. Like, those guys are awesome. And what we do is we hand off
Yeah.
and they hand back. And when they
very
hand stuff
interesting, yeah.
back, you get more out of it.
Yeah.
Sometimes people tell people different stories, right?
Yeah.
Dr. Joe will send me an amazing email. "This is what I found. This is what you should work
Yeah.
on for the next session."
That actually did happen. I
Absolutely.
remember I
Yeah.
had a nurse,
Mm-hmm.
and then the nurse was like, she was like, "I got to get my whole family in here." I was like, "Go talk to James. He'll set him up." And then I got even more training from it,
She's easy.
right? But here's something. You asked all those questions, and I don't think people talk about the handoff. Because you can ask those questions and not listen,
Mm-hmm.
which is the quickest way to lose people, lose coaching. But James takes like mental notes. And this is where I think the gift stuff comes in, unless you were writing it down, but I don't think you ever had, right? You would come to me mid-session and be like, "Hey, dude, this is Jesus, like Jesus, right? He wanted to cancel his membership because he just hasn't been losing any pounds. He's been working at this for the past 7 months, and he just hasn't really made any progress. But I know you've been really, really good with clients in the past few months, and you've really built some of the nutrition plans and this. Can you just help him out a little bit for an hour and at least just like give him an idea of what it can look like so he can make progress?" And you say like these details that for a normal human being wouldn't know, but you would say that. And I was like, oh my gosh, this guy is listening at such a high level that he wasn't really selling.
Absolutely. And that's the thing. Are you listening at a high level? Because there's the words that people say, and there are all the things that behind it.
Yes.
And, with my coaches, our coaches, I ask them questions. "How you doing? But
Yeah.
how are you doing today?"
Yeah.
And you listen for the question. You listen for the answer. And sometimes you'll ask it again, like, "Stop lying to me." Right? And, Brenda will always lie to me. And I'll always go back in and be like, "All right, how you really doing? All right, this is hurting. This is, all right, perfect.
Yeah.
That's what I want to know. I don't want this rhetorical, I'm doing okay."
Mm-hmm.
No, I'm not here for that. I'm here to find out exactly
Where you are.
Because if I know where you're at, I can meet you where you're at, and I can bring you there. Even
Exactly.
our coaches that I coach, if you're not feeling well, it's okay. If you're sore, you're anything, don't worry, I got you.
Yeah.
Just tell me where you're at, and I'll meet you there. And we'll just come up together, right?
Yeah.
We don't need to be at 100% every day.
Right.
But you can be at 60, but just tell me you're at 60. And what I'll ask for you is just give me 60%. Don't try to give me 63% and you're going to put yourself in a deficit, right? Just give me what you got. So then tomorrow you have a little more.
Dude, it's so good. But then you'll also do it not just in the day. You'll do it the next day too. You're like, hey, you were at 60% yesterday.
Remember
How are we
those
feeling
things
today?
Yeah, you got to remember those things. You have to be a memory bank. You have to be a statistics. You need to know your athlete's 1 mile pace, because when it's a 400-meter run, you got to divide that in 4, right?
Right.
And we're like, how do you know their mile pace?
Because I care about you.
I care about you. I know that I asked you to run an 8-minute mile, and I watched that clock, and you ran a 7:50. So I banked that. So the next time you come back in, well, I'm going to need you to run somewhere around 7:45. And on that first 400, what do? 140, 141, 145. That's your pace. Keep running that pace. So they know that you know where they're at and where they should be.
Yes.
That's the thing.
I'm thinking about this. Like, I'm thinking all of the coaches, because they're asking questions too. But I think one of the biggest faults that people do, they'll act like they're curious. But then they ask the same question the next day. And then the third day.
Yeah.
And then the fourth day.
No.
That hurts your relationship so much. It's like, bro, I told you about that like 3 days ago, twice already.
It makes you question your own, like, did I not tell you?
Yeah.
Or maybe you weren't listening as well as I thought you were.
And then you lose it.
You lose it. I have a friend who works with a trainer, and he mentioned something very similar. And I know the trainer, 24-hour fitness trainer, but works individually, runs his own business now. And he's like, man, I felt like I had to do that twice.
Yeah.
Tell him the same thing. And, hey, as coaches, we are steel traps, but we sometimes can mix things up. But a really good coach will never forget the details.
Exactly.
Never. Hey, if it's your mother's name or what hurts or when you go here or what the actual thing that you're in here doing, coach will never forget that.
Dude, and that's where like curiosity can be one of the biggest weapons you can use to become an effective coach. But if you abuse it, you act like you're asking questions, but you're not. It's the quickest way to just get no influence whatsoever.
And people won't answer your questions honestly.
They won't.
Because I think that's the thing is like, give me an honest question. Give me an honest answer to a question. And that goes back to the sales thing. And we'll talk sales, but I tell people this in sales, but in life, right? If you can ask people really straightforward, honest, not leading questions, they have two options. They're going to lie to you or tell you the truth.
Yes.
That's your relationship. If you ask the honest, non-self-serving, non-overleading, just ask a really good question. They're going to tell you the truth. But if you're like, well, what have you done this last week that made you gain 5 pounds on the weekend with your friends?
Yeah. Right.
I don't know. Nothing.
It's very leading.
It's fine, right? Don't ask leading questions. Just be really curious.
Yeah.
And whatever the answer is, just smile like, all right, thank you, right? And that's like getting feedback. Just say thank you.
Yeah. Because it can blend into more of judgmental. That's a judgmental value. That's not curiosity.
Yeah.
Because you're leading it into a way that you know the problem's going to be.
Yeah. Oh, I know you were hanging out with your buddies. That's why your back's hurt. Okay. Just tell me if maybe you went on a road trip with your family. You spent 7 hours in the car. Maybe that's why your back hurts.
Yeah. So curiosity, guys. If you want to become a valuable coach, make sure you're building this skill set and this value of being curious. I feel like we could talk an hour on this, but I want to make sure we get all 5.
Let's do it.
So curiosity. If you want to be a good coach, ask a lot of good questions. Okay. Value number 2 is courage for us. And we talked about this. The more you're courageous, the more you can encourage your clients.
Oh, absolutely. So that's my favorite. And as a coach, there's different ways to be courageous. You can visually show, I did this similar hard thing in this workout with this weight that was uncomfortable for me.
Yes.
You can do something hard for you too. That's one way. My favorite way is ask courageous questions.
Yes. Explain.
Put yourself out there, right? Ask the person something that you don't think that they would tell you.
Okay.
Ask them, how are you feeling today? And is there something hurting here? Because it doesn't seem like it's a physical thing for you today.
It's tough. Yeah.
It's tough, right? How are you here?
Yeah.
And
That's
you
courage
have to be
too.
prepared, right? Because sometimes people will tell you what's going on.
Yeah.
It's a lot.
You might not be ready for it too.
You might not be ready for it. But that is for me. Sometimes you get to work with adults and you get to ask really specific questions and use very colorful language in our classes, right? We get adult classes, the power of the 5 a.m.
Yes.
crew, Billy Blackwell. I love Blackwell. But
I
he
think I'll get him in
comes.
this podcast.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
There'll be a
But
bunch of beeps.
we'd have to beep everything out. But
Yeah.
there's the power of a 5 a.m. group. And sometimes the power of the 5 a.m. group is its honesty and its accountability. Where the bleep have you been?
Yeah.
Oh, well, I was tired and I didn't want to get out of bed. It's okay.
Yeah.
Well, let me ask you a question. And it might be after class.
Yeah.
And it might be, is it finally time to change something? Is it finally time to go to bed earlier? Or something along the lines of, are you ready to change?
Yes.
For me, what I do is, hey, I asked that question. Is there something that needs to change?
Yeah.
Are you ready for something to change? Do you need my help?
Right.
What can I do to help?
Yeah.
And they might not have anything for you yet. But what I'll do is I'll tell them what I do. Yeah. And for me, it's about creating 5 a.m. people. I love creating 5 a.m. people. But it's because those 5 a.m. people have such honesty. At 4 and 5 o'clock in the morning, nobody holds things back.
Yeah.
People will tell you what's on their mind that early in the morning. And people who wake up that
Tired,
early,
angry.
they really care about each other.
Mhm.
So you get to be very honest with those people who you see at certain times that they don't see their family. All right, well, I've earned this. You know what? Why does your back always hurt on Friday? Well, it's because I sit down all day at work.
Okay.
Okay. Now you have that opportunity. Do you back that whole week up? And do you now say, have you ever thought about a stand-up desk? I don't know. Whatever those things are. But again, at that point, they have an opportunity to say, no, I don't want you to talk to me about this.
Yeah.
Be courageous. It's okay. Sometimes people don't have to like everything you do.
Yeah.
And you tell them. But it's one of those things as coaches, like Tara says, if I ask you or suggest something to you and you don't like it, probably needed it.
Yeah.
You probably needed
that requires a little bit of courage.
A little courage,
And
right?
I want to pack on that because it requires courage because, if they tell you something real, it's going to destroy your energy. Right? But I think the courage where you're leading from is for another coach to see that you're okay asking hard questions.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
You're okay having hard conversations and maneuvering that. I never really thought of it that way, but that's 100% one way you can show courage to your team.
Just having hard questions.
Right.
Hard questions, hard conversations. So, that starts at our house.
Right.
You and Tara talked about it in your episode. Find a relationship that's really good. You find a lot of hard conversations.
Yes.
Me and my wife spent the first 5 years of our
It's like 5 minutes, that's it?
5 minutes, right? We spent the first 5 years of our relationship figuring out how to communicate. Trying to not go to bed angry. How to, at that moment when how do you bring it up right away? And use good tone and use good patience and let them respond and not over-respond. As a coach, okay, I just saw something. How do I approach it right now? How do I find this person? And, I like to use the athlete. Use the most veteran athlete. Use the athlete who knows everything. Okay, I got an opportunity to go in here. They could tell me that I don't need your help, or they can tell me get away from me. But you know what? I'm going to take a, stab at this thing and see if I can help somebody. And maybe it's something with their posture, something with their eyes, something with where they're doing, something they haven't thought about, but nobody has ever been courageous enough to say, you don't need my help, do you?
Yeah.
Hey, it's okay, right? And that's, for me, the reason I do it. I want them to do it to me.
Right. Ask those hard questions.
Ask me hard questions, right? As much as anybody else needs it, I want them to ask me hard questions.
Yeah.
Because one of our best coaches, Coach Nick, asked the best questions in the game.
Mm-hmm.
The best questions. That's why people come to his class. The
Yeah.
question at the beginning of the class is one of the best things he does.
And he also works out.
And he also works out. But, when he
Yeah.
asked that question, I'm sure he's listening to your answer.
Right.
But he's filtering what you said.
Yes.
He's figuring out how you feel and where your energy's at just based on the question.
Yeah.
And
which is more curiosity.
More curiosity,
Yeah.
because he's doing all kinds of internal, work inside. And I think as coaches, that's what we need to do is be courageous, ask a hard question, but then understand it and filter it if you need to through yourself. And then just be okay with going back in and being, one, wrong, two, getting yelled at, and,
I love it.
being uncomfortable.
One of the big things for me on courage is the actual form of actions. We've all had that doctor that told you to eat vegetables and exercise more, but they're 350 pounds. And it's very hard to listen to that type of advice because they haven't taken their own courageous action to do some of those difficult things. And I think some of the best coaching doesn't happen in coaching. It's when a person tweaks their back, like James, my man James here just tweaked his back, and he's still going on the next day trying to find modifications and showing people that it's okay to hurt yourself and still make progress, right? Or it's a person doing, like, I've never done a half marathon before, and I used to hate running, but I'm going to do it, right? Like, when those types of coaches seek discomfort, seek new courageous actions that are not normally, like, certain, I think it gives this, like, essence of energy when they tell you something about what's going to happen on the whiteboard.
Yeah, that's why we do hard things.
Yeah.
We had a funny conversation, but one of our athletes before today's hero workout said, I can do hard things. To herself, right?
Mm-hmm.
Coach Nix, you can do hard things. One of my favorite things is doing hard things that are like, why would you do that, right?
Yeah.
You're doing 1,000 days of Murph.
Yeah.
One of my favorites that I did was my marathon row. Coach Nick did that with me, and if you've never done it, do the marathon row.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody can row.
Mm-hmm.
You can stop at any time. But if there's a challenge mentally that I've ever had, it was that one. 42,195 meters.
Yeah.
Put that on the rower and just go for it. But that's a challenge I love. Chad, right? Mm-hmm. Chad is my other one. 1,000 box step-ups for time.
Mm-hmm.
I do double Chad.
Yeah.
Why? Do you think 1,000's impossible? Well, I'm going to do 2,000 to show you that that's half.
Right.
And it's possible, right? And people are like, I guess you're right?
Yeah.
I mean, I guess if you can do twice the amount,
I can do half.
I can do half.
Yeah.
Which is way more than a lot of people ever do in their life. And it's you're lapping anybody on the couch, right? If you made it here to the gym, you're courageous enough to put yourself out there, you're lapping everybody else who's sitting on their couch. Mm-hmm. If you can get up and do one box step up, the only difference between 1 and 1,000 is 999 step ups, right? Just do another one. Just do another. The book, the Ed Milet, The Power of One More. The Power of One More Step Up, right? Yeah. When I do double Chad, it's just one more step up, and then one more step up, and then one more step up. And if you've been an adult in America and life, and you have a traditional job, and it's 9 to 5, at 1:30, it's one more step up.
Yes.
It's one more report. It's one more email. It's one more phone call. It's one more meeting. It's one more, got to go to the school and pick up my kids. It's one more, we got to go to dinner. We've got to go with the family. It's always one more. But if you can put yourself into a place where where you're so courageous to take one more step,
Mm-hmm.
the next step's easy.
Exactly. And here's the thing, like first, one part of that courageous action is showing people that you can do hard things. But I think there's a special level that eventually happens that you eventually do so many hard things that you don't need to show it anymore. You just have that aura around you,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like I always talk about military guys that's killed people.
Mm-hmm.
They don't have to say anything. I already know. I'm like,
Ever.
respect. Like I can feel it in their soul, right? So when you have someone that walks in with that type of aura, you already know it.
It's the Woodrow Wilson, walk softly and carry a big stick, right?
Yeah.
You are the big stick, but just
Mm-hmm.
you can walk softly once you've hardened this thing and you know you can do it.
Yeah.
You have a different confidence that,
Mm-hmm.
what is it? Okay, I can do it. Like what Joe said, I love, the way Joe wanted to teach his son how to put the steering pump in, right?
Mm-hmm.
But what he said is, you know what? It's an opportunity. You need to learn something, right? You can
Mm-hmm.
learn something with this opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
Boom. That's
Yeah.
that's where I'm at.
I love it. Okay, so guys, if you're not increasing your own courage to do hard things, you're leaving a lot of stuff under the table that you could be using.
Mm-hmm.
So if you want to encourage more of your people, do things that are hard. Physically, mentally, spiritually, hard conversations. Because if you can do that on a regular basis, you don't even have to speak when you're on that whiteboard. You just have to show up. And then people would be like, I'm listening. I see the guy's scars. I see the guy's muscles, right? I see him limping in here with a smile, and he's still doing curls. He's doing mobility off to the side, right? He's handling adversity all day, and he's still moving forward, right? That's why I think that's one of the most powerful values, and that's why we tell people, it's like, dude, you can't be a coach if you don't work out.
Nope.
We need to see you struggle. We need to see you hurt. We need to see you overcome it. Because, dude, you can tell them how many burpees, how many pull-ups, how much they have to run. But if you don't do any of those things, if we don't see it and we don't feel it, no one will ever listen to what you say.
Camaraderie is that shared pain, right? That is a lot of guys in the military, the relationships they've built are based on shared pain.
Yes.
There's, we had this conversation. It was about your brain and its memory. It remembers things by smell, things like that. But your body remembers nothing like it remembers pain.
Yeah.
And if you can remember the pain that someone's going through and can connect with them with that pain,
It's powerful.
Powerful connection forever.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's, again, another form of courage.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so let's go to the next one, which is one of my favorite ones, by the way. And by the way, guys, all of these values you might seem like we both had, but we actually started with very little of it. And we had to work on it, and we've been intentional on it. And you're like, yeah, you guys have always been like that. I was like, that's not true. This last one, very specifically, is collaboration, right? At the highest level of competing, if you want to win, if you're addicted to winning, you hate losing, collaboration is required.
Mm-hmm.
And there's something that, like, you know what people say, like the 10,000 steps or 10,000 reps, and you get really, really good at it.
Yeah.
In one way, you can do that, but you can shortcut that. You can do 9,000 steps of learning from people who have messed up, and then do the other 1,000 of making your own mistakes. And I used to be the 10,000. I'm just going to do 10,000 reps, and I'm just going to
grind it out.
I'm just going to grind it out. And guys, there is, you built resiliency, you built hard work, but at the end of the day, you're not going to be competing at the highest level. You're going to be competing at an individual level. But if you want to compete and grow, like, and create a movement, it requires a lot of collaboration. Collaboration through actually having teammates and asking for help. We've had scenarios where, like, Royce, you're doing too much. What can I do? And I'm like, damn, did James just say that? It's like, stop doing that. Let us do that.
But
right?
You've done the same thing to me, right?
I done the
You're
same
like,
thing.
but I think
Yeah.
on a team as a coach, you get to see those things because we're both grinders.
Yeah.
We will grind this thing out
Yeah.
forever.
Exactly.
But the whole point of this is doing it with teams of coaches. We coach coaches so they can coach us back and remind us. Like we
Yeah.
just had a conversation about goal settings. If you're
Yeah.
a serial goal setter and you're serially failing, sometimes you
Mm-hmm.
need to take a step back. You're like, wait, are you talking about me? I'm like, I'm talking about all of us. You're
Yeah.
like, I feel like you're talking about me. I'm like,
Yeah.
I am talking about you.
Yeah.
Because that's what you do. We are
Serial goal setters.
grinders, serial goal setters, serial failers, because that's
Mhm.
okay.
Yeah.
But sometimes you beat yourself up too much and
You need
taking a
someone.
step back.
Yeah.
And that's where, like, collaborating, right? Some of the best things that we've done have been coaching classes. So
Yeah.
I always take it back to aerobic capacity when Chris Henshaw came in,
Mhm.
one of my favorite coaches ever. And it was a unique
Yeah.
time. So it was the year of the first Rogue Invitational.
Yes.
So he was in our gym. Man, that was the coolest gym. Old school Mountain's Edge, or huge warehouse.
Yeah.
But during the lunch break, the class was amazing. But during the lunch break, we watched a Rogue Invitational with Chris Henshaw.
Mhm.
And those are all his athletes. And he was telling us exactly what was getting ready to happen. He's like,
Crazy.
well, she's going to struggle here. He's good here. Dumbbell Dever presses here. She's going to struggle here. Because those athletes, direct coaches, had collaborated with an aerobic capacity specialist because they knew that they need to improve their capacity.
Mhm.
And that's why we were taking the class, because we knew that you just can't be
Mhm.
CrossFit, barbell, lift heavy, lift fast, run fast. You need to understand
Mhm.
capacity. And sometimes you need to collaborate with somebody who knows a little bit more about it. So
Yeah.
sometimes you reach out to somebody who knows more, or sometimes you take a course
Mhm.
to learn more, or you take an online course, you
Yeah.
listen to a podcast, right? Man, the coolest thing that I've learned about a 3-day fast was don't do it from you. That is my favorite thing.
That was my first time. But
Right?
I'd done a 5-day, and it's different type of experiment.
But you collaborated unconsciously by you just
Yeah.
sharing your experience. No, that's enough.
Yeah.
I appreciate that. But I've had people do it. But
Yeah.
you can read, listen, watch a podcast and be like, oh, man, I don't need to go make that mistake now.
Yeah.
I can go make a better mistake or a different mistake instead of just ramming my head into the wall.
Yeah.
Or
Which
I
is
can-
equivalent to a rep.
Absolutely. It's a
Right?
full rep, right? It was like, those are
Yeah.
the things that we can collaborate. Like, I love how you said it, 10,000 steps. I'll just take the last 1,000. I'll let
gonna
somebody else take the other first 9,000.
100%.
That's the coolest way I've ever heard of it.
And dude, I think people are not. You see a really, really good athlete that's in ESPN. They have the highlights, and I'll show you someone that has been learning from 1,000 coaches or 1,000 players. If you look at Michael Jordan's moves, there's some Dr. J in it,
Mm-hmm.
right? There's some Magic Johnson in it, there's Kareem, and then there's his. And then there's, dude, it's like, and you look at Kobe Bryant, and it's the same thing. It's like, dude, he shortened this game because he's collabed.
Rest in peace, Kobe.
Rest in peace. It was just yesterday.
Just yesterday, 4
Yeah.
years, right? So we've actually, we've shared Tim Grover, Kobe and Michael's coach.
Mm-hmm.
If you've never read those books, Relentless,
Amazing book.
oh my God, unbelievable. But
Yeah. You think they're
just
competitive, but they're very collaborative.
very collaborative. But to know, and again, you can read that book, listen to the audio book, to learn from the experience that he had with one of the highest level athletes, 2 of them of all time.
Mm-hmm.
Well, sometimes what you need to do is just let them do their hard thing, right? Sometimes you don't need to pull people back.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you just need to lock the gym, because that was Kobe's thing.
Yeah.
You couldn't keep him out of gym. They'd literally have to lock the gym on him.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes you need to steer into the skid and say, hey, are you ready to hit the gym at 4 o'clock in the morning because you're in a foreign city,
Mm-hmm.
and the one thing you know that you can control is your training?
Yeah.
Perfect. Let's do it. Let's do it, right? So we have athletes that want to do crazy stuff. Perfect. Let's do it. I'm in. Do you want to work out on a day we're closed? Perfect. Let's do it. I'm in. Do you want to do something? Perfect. Let's do it. But sometimes
need
you
to
go
peel
the
them
other
back.
way, right?
Yeah.
But just knowing the chances, knowing the times to do it is an opportunity to just learn from other people's mistakes.
Yeah.
So
So if you're not collaborating, you're just like, it takes a long time. And to be pretty transparent, I don't think I collaborated until like year 8 in my gym business, where it finally was like, I'm just burnt out. I'm just tired. It's because you're doing everything, man. Go out, go hire coaches. There was a stage, and it was like, dude, I was coaching every single hour, and you were like, dude, let me just run this class. I promise.
yes,
I got it, okay? And it was so hard for me to just like, be like,
release
yeah.
it, right? But that's like everything. As your kids,
Mm-hmm.
it's hard to let someone else parent your kids,
Yeah.
right? Because you can do it better than them, and then you see someone else who has amazing relationship with their kids, and their kids are so polite, and you're like, maybe I should.
Yeah.
I need to hang out with you more. Can my kid come hang out with your kids? Can we
Right.
collaborate and I just want to know what you do, right? Because as parents, that's an opportunity as well. So for me, we don't have kids yet, but we want kids.
Mm-hmm.
So we find every opportunity to be around your son.
Mm-hmm.
We go around our friends' kids. Hey, my niece and nephew are my favorite people in the whole world.
Right.
Because I learn so much about them.
Right.
Every time. I learn human development. I learn interactions. I learn brother-sister relations. But I also learn as, just my, nephew Landon. He is the oldest boy.
Yeah.
Sweetest kid you'll ever meet. But his instinct to protect is unbelievable. But his connection with his little brother,
Yeah.
who's just a year old, is unbelievable.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God, that's just a natural thing for him. You learn little things just from kids, right? That's why I like being around, kids and, helping kids. And, one of my favorite things, one of our athletes, she always asks, can I bring my son in? Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. And her son had an amazing time these last few weeks.
Yeah.
And she looked at him. She's like, oh my God, I think he's a natural. I'm like,
yeah.
He enjoyed it, right?
Yeah.
And what I learned is when she brought him in, I had to give her control. And I talked to her about this, and she knows who she is.
Mm-hmm.
If she listens to this, she'll know who she is.
Yeah.
But when she brought her kids in, they were coming in my class, but I let her do a lot of the demonstration. I let her show her kids how capable she was. I let her talk about the things we were doing. I let her become an expert in this room. So when her kids came back, guess who didn't have to coach every piece of them? Me. She could have a piece of her kids, and they listened to her, and they learned little. Oh my God! One, I think their relationship got stronger.
Yeah.
But then it was oh my God, maybe my mom does know what she's talking about.
Mm-hmm. I've had scenarios where that backfired on me a little bit sometimes.
Yeah.
Because when they're like super hovering.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah.
But if it's like, hey, I'm going to teach you a little bit and I'm going to do my own thing, I think that's healthy.
You played a game.
But super hovering, bro.
Helicopter parents are great. I'm going to be a helicopter parent. I'm okay with that, though.
Yeah.
I know it, but this is my chance to
let them show.
Right? So it's tough, right? They're our kids.
So I want to unpack something, because you said collaborating doesn't have to mean you're like asking the most elite coach to gain lessons.
Mm-hmm.
You got lessons from a kiddo.
Yeah.
I get lessons from my son, and I think that's what, like, it's such a special, when you're really collaborating at the high level, you're using everything from high level coaches to kiddos to even the leaves on the tree.
The leaves on the tree.
You're like, I think that can help me do X, Y, and Z.
Using all the tools at our disposal, like as much as we talk about social media, we have a unique relationship with it, and I kind of arm's length with it. And there's amazing coaches that will collaborate with you for free on Instagram.
There is,
We'll give you all the things, and they're giving it away for free. The same way we just want to give it away. Man, I love to I have coaches who don't know that they're collaborating with me right now.
Yeah, because you always share me some good nuggets. I was like, stolen.
That's how that's, for one, how do you communicate with people these days?
Sharing things
you don't call them as much anymore. We talked about, and you guys talk about, just checking in on people via text message. Mm-hmm. Sometimes people receive all of their information on social media. Mm-hmm. So sometimes that's where you got to give it to them.
Yeah.
And
That's
that's
true.
how I collaborate from coaches who give me all kinds of stuff, and I love them. But then all I do is share it.
That's
All I
true.
do is pass it
Yeah.
on and say, hey, this is really a
So
good
good.
nugget. Share it.
Okay. So we just uncovered three big ones: curiosity, courage, collaboration. And these next two actually has came up in just recently, I feel like the past 3 years. Okay, so we had three C's: curiosity, courage, collaboration. The next one's self-care, which
Yeah.
is something I didn't learn until 8 years into it. Again, I think
Mhm.
8 years was my new beginning. That's when I was like, meh, I'm actually reborn, right? Which is self-care. So you can only take care of others at the highest level when you truly understand how to really take care of yourself. And everyone's so different. Please tell me, like, give me an example of a scenario where maybe you've taken care of so many people, and we've all been there,
Mhm.
and then it just backfired because you forgot about you.
So I'll tell a story from my past life, and I'll tell a story from this week.
Okay.
So I say my past life. When I worked for one of those big five investment firms,
Hmm.
I
I remember that.
the greatest lesson I ever learned in finance was working with these companies.
Hmm.
But this is what I learned indirectly. So I
Hmm.
worked with a team, and it was 4 advisors, 2 other associates on the team.
Hmm.
But for the last 2 weeks of every year,
Yeah.
all of the advisors would leave the country.
Hmm.
They would shut completely down
Yeah.
and leave the country. And I'm talking New Zealand, Thailand, China. I'm not on the same time zone as you. You
Yeah.
can't call me. Don't email me. I am
Out.
taking care of me and my family. This is
Hmm.
my self-care. But this is what I'll tell you about that time. When they were taking care of themselves, I was at the office taking care of
Everybody
everybody
else.
and getting blown to pieces. And my
Yeah.
wife will know this. Many years in a row, on January 2nd, I've had to take the day off
Yeah.
sick.
Yeah.
Flu, headache, fever,
Hmm.
completely wiped myself out. And I was like, I can't figure out why this keeps happening. Well, because they're taking care of
Yeah.
themselves, and I never stopped to take care of me. And I
Hmm.
was like,
Was that the day where you blew up on me and Huzik that one day? Was it that same
it,
era?
it was it was right around the same time, right? And you know, Huzik,
Uh,
I know this. Husic's one of my best buddies,
yeah.
and you know, I am.
I think we're
We're
just
just,
chatting normal.
just chatting away, but you know,
Yeah.
stress and pressure, and I had a lot of stuff going on, and I'm like, I need you to be quiet, and I
That's
didn't say be quiet, right? I said
dude,
more
you
than be quiet,
uh
and I said it
you were like, huh?
across a 6,000 square foot gym
Yeah.
warehouse,
20
and
people.
people could
Yeah.
hear it, right? And they were like, oh,
I've never
okay,
seen James do that before.
that's not the same, right?
Yeah.
But again, our stress, and you don't take care of yourself, it's going to explode,
Hmm.
right? So sometimes we're little volcanoes and we need to erupt.
Yeah.
Small here and take care of ourselves. So now, 4 or 5 years ago, let's go back to this week.
Yeah.
I've talked to people about my schedule. I have jam-packed schedule,
Yeah.
right? We work 60, 70 hours. But on
Jeez.
Fridays is a self-care day for me.
Good for
I
you.
normally work,
Yeah.
and I call that a half day. It's a 9-hour day, right? But at 1
That's
o'clock,
a
I
that's
called.
a half day for
That's a half day
for grinders.
for grinders, right? You know,
Yeah.
normally we're 5 a.m. to 5 or 7 p.m.
Hmm.
But on Fridays, I self-care. You know, I take that
Yeah.
time and I plan to spend it with my wife. We'll do a date night. But just to take care of myself, because I
Mhm.
know Saturday morning, I have clients I work with. I have a class that I'm going to work with. I need that energy.
Hmm.
So a couple weeks ago, I had to work all day on Friday, doing audits and all the
yeah.
things that boring work does at the
Drainers.
beginning of the year, right?
Hmm.
What did I do? On Monday morning, I woke up. We had our meeting as normal, as our coaches meeting. And I looked at my wife and I said, hey, I think I'm going to take the day off. I wasn't sick.
Nice. Yeah.
I wasn't overtired. I wasn't having some type of event. I wasn't in the bathroom. But I said, you know what? This is a good point because I didn't get a chance to do it on Friday. Catch up on your recovery and your self-care.
Hmm.
And it was just time for myself. We got caught up on all those things around your house, your grocery shopping. But you know what we did? We went and got our eyeglasses done, and I spent about 5 hours with my wife.
Beautiful. And that's like that's a major energy driver for you.
That's where I get my energy. When I self-care for me is a few different ways. I normally like to be by myself.
That's how I am. Yeah.
And my wife knows that. So, she asked, and when we brought up the statement, and she said, I know you don't want to be around me when you're recovering. And I said, no, don't misunderstand it. I like to be by myself, but I don't want to be without you.
Right.
Right. So
That's true.
I can recover with her energy.
You do well with like if you're with high level connections.
High level connections.
That actually feeds you.
That's where I feed. Because if my connections aren't as high level, I have to give too much, and that doesn't benefit me. And for me, and the reason I say it doesn't benefit me, if I can't receive when I'm trying to recover, tomorrow I'm going to be blown out. I'm not going to have the ability to give you energy, Madison energy. I can't give any of the athletes energy. And there's no point. There's no point of being there and giving half the energy. For one, it's just too hard. So that's one thing that I huge proponent of, just taking care of yourself and finding those ways. So another way I self-care is I self-care with food. And like we said, I'm a cookie monster, right?
Yeah.
If you're addicted to sugar, sometimes you need to feed your beast, right?
Yeah.
Don't run away from your beast, because eventually that beast is going to find its way out. So mentally, we take a date night break, right? Let's go get something that we can enjoy our time and energy together. And it's maybe not pizza all the time. It's typically that's not what we're going to do.
Right.
But it's, we wanted to try that. Let's do that. That's how I actually feed my self-care as well, because a connection over a meal is how I grew up.
Yeah.
I grew up in the South. My mom prepared all of my meals. My dad's an amazing cook. That's where I get a lot of my my spirituality and everything. But food is how we connect in my family. And the joke is, when I go see my family in North Carolina, hey, I'll be here for 4 days. Make all the calls you need. And it's literally get off the plane, breakfast with this family member, lunch with this family member.
Amazing.
Dinner with this family member. Breakfast, lunch. We connect over food. So for me, I find the right person I can connect with, the right people, the right room, the right food, and that will help me to recover. And I'm like, that's why I did 2,000 step-ups.
Yeah.
That's why I did this, is so I can just self-care, enjoy myself, and not feel bad about stuff. Because there's nothing worse than feeling bad about food.
There is. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, spot on. And what you did there was called the reward cycle. And I think, like, underlining what you just talked about, in order to receive that type of self-care, you needed to do a separate type of self-care, which is self-discomfort.
Yeah.
And I think it can be, like, people think self-care can be just like, oh, I'm just going to get my nails done and I'm going to eat food. But no, you've paired it with two things. I'm going to do this amount of work via physical, via work, via financial, and I'm going to get this type of reward. I think people miss that. And a lot of times that's why they don't have the health. You've been lean for year round. I've never seen you have no six pack. And then everyone thinks you're eating Oreos. I was like, no, you don't know how much this guy actually does work. He puts in so much work in food prepping, saying no to things. Right? You only see that part of it. Oh man, you're missing out the whole picture.
Yeah.
Right? So I think that's huge component in terms of self-care. And like, people don't understand how much work you actually do for yourself. And it seems selfish at the start, but all this self-care is for the person that you're taking care of tomorrow.
Taking care of, it's like when you're on a plane, please put the mask on yourself first. Because if you try to put that guy's mask on and pass out, you're both screwed.
Exactly.
Right? If you don't take care of yourself today, on Monday morning, your clients are not going to be able to do it without you, right? Your coaches, like, we as coaches rely on each other. I rely on you, you rely on me. If you don't take care of yourself on Sunday, when you know you need to, and you need me to cover you on Monday, you know I can't.
Yeah.
So I need you to take care of yourself, right? So I just did that with Madison, right?
It's
Coach
like
Madison man, I can't wait till you guys have her on here. But
Yeah.
she is the person that will take care of everyone. But you got to
Except
be
for
the one that
yourself.
takes care of
Yeah.
herself, right? So we have to remind her to take care of herself. And
Yeah.
for Madison, it's like, hey, I know you want to support everybody, but take care of yourself for one more
Right.
day. So next week you can take care of us again,
Yeah.
right? Because I
think
need you
that's
to
the
take
secret,
care.
yeah.
I need your energy. So I need you to take care of yourself. And if you looked at your friend or your family or your spouse, and you
Mm-hmm.
looked at your spouse and the bad time that they're having, and you're gonna be like, you know, I need you to start taking care of yourself
Mm-hmm.
so you can help take care of me, because you know how much your wife does for you.
Mm-hmm.
If your wife wasn't taking care of herself, it's going to absolutely have a huge butterfly effect on you and your son.
It is, yeah. And here's what's cool. Once you start really defining these values, your own people will start to protect you,
Mm-hmm.
which is like very cool. You know, like when Madison went to Thailand, she was like, "Hey Royce, are you able to do enough self-care to do all this?" And she already knew. And I was like, "I got it."
Yeah.
And then we had that management meeting. I was like, "Guys, I'm going to be completely honest. I might not be all into this management meeting, so I'm going to need some of your help to kind of create some of the juices. And then two, I'm probably not going to be posting a lot of content because I'm going to be pouring into all our clients."
Mm-hmm.
Right? And you're like, "Done. We already know that." Right? I think it's so refreshing where it's just like, "Hey, James, we got to take one of your classes out. Your energy just seems low.
Mm-hmm.
You're not throwing fireballs anymore." Right?
That we've talked about that, and that's we use that baseball analogy.
Fastballs. Not
Fastballs,
fireballs.
right? And it's like what coaches, what I tell a lot of coaches is, if you watch baseball, you know some of the most exciting baseball, especially in the playoffs, comes from relief pitchers, closers, right? And we
Closers, yeah.
can use closers however you want. The Tim Grover version of closers is one, but I talk about closers the same way. Those guys come in and throw heat.
Yeah.
I'm here to give you all the smoke, right? And when you're done, I want you to be, oh my God, my hair's all blown back. This is like,
Yeah.
that was crazy. You gave me energy, you gave me emotion, you gave me intention, you gave me movement. I learned something from you, and I had a great time. If you don't have enough energy in your body to come out and do that over and over and over again, nobody wants it. It's not worth it.
And you're doing a disservice for your clients
Doing a
at that
disservice.
stage.
You're not doing them a service, but you're making yourself look bad. Oh,
Yeah.
don't go to that, coach. I've been in there.
He's just
I don't know. He
tired.
just seems like he's tired.
No
I
one
don't
wants
know.
to
It's
hear
just
that, yeah.
it wasn't a bump in class, right? And we talk about classes that are have that energy, all the way up like Frat Joe in French Montana, like an 11. If your class can be at an 11, awesome. If I have to have my class at an 8,
Yeah.
nah.
Dude, there's two types of coaches. There's ones that contribute and there's ones that consume. And if you're not throwing fastball, guess what you're doing? You're actually just consuming from the rest of the group.
Just pulling energy away.
Yeah. And then you'll see this, and we've seen this over the course of time. Really quickly, guys, just to be pretty transparent, in terms of just like we've done so much more sales last year. I think we signed 250 plus members, right? 97 of them disappeared. 97, right? And one of the biggest things is why we wanted to do this is because there's so many coaches that need to hear this, but we don't have the bandwidth to be able to do these one-on-ones. We used to when we had one gym, but the truth of the matter is when we had two, when we split it to more, you can't do that anymore.
No.
So like explaining this whole concept of taking care of yourself is so huge. And like if you're not at the highest level, you're only hurting the team. And this is I want people to highlight this, because if you're a coach and you want to have 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 other coaches, this particular value will allow you to scale to more people. Will allow you not only scale to more people, you'll probably help a lot more people just in general and have more impactful results. You gotta take care of yourself.
Gotta take care of yourself. You gotta take care of yourself. And I come back to your family always, because most people, even if they're coaches, they still have a family they have to take care of, right?
Yeah.
If you didn't take care of yourself in here, when you got home and your son needed you, what are you going to do? You're going to say, no, Lucas, I don't have time. I don't have the energy. I will Go see your mom.
Mm-hmm.
You would be so upset if
Yeah.
you ever did that.
Yeah.
No, you come and do Murph so you can go home and have energy
Mm-hmm.
to do everything else with your son, right?
Right.
I think that is one of those things where find what gives you energy.
Mm-hmm.
Do that
As many times as you
as
can.
many times as you can.
Yeah.
And if that runs out of energy, go find something else.
Mm-hmm.
And keep finding something else. And this is something I use from Coach Nick. And we describe it as cup fillers. And this is how...
we talked about it on the last episode, so people will be able, because your episode will come up.
But
So.
after, yeah.
So play it back.
Play it back, right?
Yeah.
So, Coach Nick, and this is why he's my coach as well.
Yeah.
He reminded me, he's like, you need all the ways to fill your cup. And we're going to go all the way there.
Mm-hmm.
Find those ways. And I said, well, I got this and that. And he's like, well, what else, right? Because eventually you're not going to be able to be by yourself. You're not going to be able to go work out to recover. You're not going to be able to go watch a movie by yourself. You're not going to play video games. You're not going to go eat. What are those things? Maybe it's read. Maybe it's walk. Maybe it's he said, come up with 12 different things you do. So on the day that you don't want to go work out because your leg's broken, tired, back, you don't have to, right? If maybe you don't want to read because you've worked for 14 hours, don't go read. Maybe go for a walk. Maybe go spend time with your family. Maybe go call somebody. Maybe take your dogs for a walk, right? That's something that Coach Madison does. That's a part of her thing. For me, absolutely. But I had to come up with all those things that filled my cup. Why? Because I pour from my cup into yours.
Yes.
To Madison's, to Nick's, to all my athletes. But at the end of the day, if my cup's not full enough,
you take away from everybody else.
Somebody's like Milton at the end of Office Space, who doesn't get a piece of cake and doesn't get their cup full. And do you want to be an athlete in a room who doesn't get their cup filled because the coach ran out of energy?
I think this whole concept, if you're a coach and you're helping people, or if you're a leader and you're leading a bunch of other teams and you're seeing your place dwindle to nothingness, you should check just this one.
Yeah.
If you can check this one, it's going to be absolute game changer for you. Yeah. How are you taking care of yourself? Period.
And people will see, oh, you're taking care of yourself? Does that mean that now I'm allowed to take care of myself? So people on your team will do exactly what you do.
Exactly.
Like the joke in CrossFit is athletes will dress like their coaches. They will do everything like they'll wear the same shoes as you. Oh, where'd you get those shorts?
Yeah.
I want a pair of those. Oh, I like that. Is that a hoodie? Oh, I like that hoodie. They will do everything you do, good and bad. If you don't take care of yourself, well, I'll just do what you do. But if all of a sudden you're like, oh, you know what I've been doing? And Coach Nick does this, and I love it. He just does burpees. He doesn't say anything to anybody about it. But then people start doing burpees. And next thing you know, there was a burpee gang. Okay, cool. All right, how's that work? You just led by example and just started doing these things that take care of yourself. But he also does walks by himself and reads.
He meditates. Cold showers.
He fills his cup the way he needs to fill. For one, he gets his activity from walking, but he can read at the same time and consume the information that makes him feel good. And he does this very strategically right before he coaches in the evenings. He fills his cup and then goes and pours into other people.
I'm glad you recognize that, because I used to think that if I worked really, 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 really hard, my team would work really, really, really hard. But then again, they just worked really, really hard and then they got burnt out. Right. So Richard is one of our new guys that's in our team. Is one of our sales guys, and I said, no, I don't work Fridays, and he was like, what? He was like, no, that's your day. I trust you. He's like, that's my day to just like, I work my grinder 5 hours, 9 hours, right? And then like you run the calls, you run the sales appointments, and he was just a little bit thrown off.
That's like my Mondays. The only thing I do on Mondays is we have our coaches meeting or our management meeting, and I actually don't step into a gym. I don't do any. That's the rest of my self-care day. I do traditional office work from home, and I have the opportunity where I get to work from home. But my Monday mornings I do a Zoom call with you guys, and then I
That's
don't
it.
communicate with anybody else. I finish off my self-care.
Yeah, and it's good. Okay, dude, we just got 4 there. We got 4 C's: curiosity, courage, collaboration, self-care. There's an S in there, but it's care.
Yeah.
There's another one, which is growth. Let's talk about this final one. I wanted to put a C on there, so I call it continuous growth.
Hey, there you go.
Boom!
We'll take it.
Madison would be proud of
Right.
me. But so continuous growth.
Yeah.
And I think this is such an important piece because this is what I see. As the coach starts to grow more and more and more and more, I find clients they're just going there more. The more you grow, the more they go.
Mm-hmm.
Or a lot of times I'll see coaches that they get a certification. I'm the top of the top. And that's it. They think they're the smartest in the world. And then they'll get someone that's even higher than they are. Guess what happens? They don't keep them.
Mm-mm.
Right? So you have them for a season. So I find the greatest coaches, the ones that have massive amounts of classes, massive amounts of influence, they have this continuous pursuit of growth. And not just like physical things, not the competence things. Like they grow in their spirituality.
Mm-hmm.
They grow in their relationships. They grow obviously in their bodies, in their injuries, right? So, and they're always bringing something new to the game. And it makes you really interesting. And the other side to it, I think as you grow, you become so magnetic. Because at the end of the day, you're either growing or you're dying.
Mm-hmm.
Most people don't want to die.
Don't want to die, but then sometimes you don't want to grow.
Mm-hmm.
And I say want to grow because growing is hard. And I'm going to let's go old school physiological. Remember called growing pains? When you're physically growing, it hurts.
Yes.
That doesn't change, right? When you're physically learning finance, podcasting, fitness, nutrition, when you're constantly making mistakes, it's not fun. It hurts, right?
Yeah.
When you're constantly trying to get stronger in the gym and you constantly fail, you're always out of breath and you're always tired and you're always trying to do something hard. It hurts. It's painful. So you got to want a little bit of pain.
I didn't even think about that. So that is one of the side byproducts. So you're growing at such a high level. There's going to be all these people that want to go with you, but then all the people that don't want to grow, they disappear. Which is a blessing, I think, because it's painful.
Yeah, it's painful, right? And it's like you had that conversation with Tara. I'm afraid that if you don't grow, we're going to grow apart.
Yes.
It's the greatest.
That was a hardcore conversation, though, for
hard,
sure.
but it was probably the best conversation you guys ever had.
Oh, yeah. 100%. It was
weight
huge.
off your shoulders.
Yeah, it was a lot.
Because after how long did you carry that around?
8 years. 8 years. Yeah.
You carried it around for 8 years, and when it came off, you're like, freedom. Now we can go and grow hardcore, and I don't feel like I'm gonna. Now I can grow without feeling like I'm gonna leave you behind and grow all the way, right?
She's going farther sometimes. She sent me that Tony Robbins thing that you sent me.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like she's just doing things that I'm like, I gotta catch up.
Well, your wife's amazing, so
right?
we all
it's
know
very
this.
Different. Yeah.
We just had this conversation where you're still not sure how. That's called marrying up.
Yeah.
I
like,
married
that's your
up
wife?
too. That's your wife? That's your husband?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's okay.
Guy.
But
exactly.
that's I think the tough thing about growth is it's painful and it's not fun. There's that one moment that when you have fun and you grow, and we'll go CrossFit reference.
Yeah.
And it's new movements, right? The coolest, funnest movement in CrossFit's the ring muscle up. But once you do a ring muscle up, now you have to do it in a workout. You're like, that was hard.
It was like,
well, I need you to do 10 of them.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I don't want to do that. That's hard.
Yeah.
You've grown. You can't.
Now your capacity's here.
You can't go and become a butterfly and go back and be a caterpillar, right?
Ooh. There you go. I'm gonna repair. That's it.
That's it right there. Shot. That's all. You can't go back. You can't put the cheese back in. Once you're out there, people know what you're capable of, and that's it.
Once you're a I just had a million. Once you're a butterfly, you can't come back to become a caterpillar.
You can't, right? And that's one of those things where I talk about. It's.
I'm stolen.
We're dropping bombs, but I talk about. It was before I ever saw someone who, so my wife, when she was in high school, she was a competitive swimmer.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, I didn't grow up swimming. I'm not that type of person. I was a lifeguard, right?
Yeah.
Whatever. Right? I could jump in a pool and get somebody out as long as I can touch the bottom. But my wife, she grew up with a lap pool in her backyard. And the first time we spent time together, and if you've ever seen someone who does swim something like the butterfly, where they get out of the water. Have you ever seen somebody who swims
Oh,
like
I
that?
tried it. I drown.
And you drown, right?
And I go backwards.
And you're like, oh, what? When the first time I ever saw her swim, oh, you're powerful. You're amazing.
Mm-hmm.
You can never go back to however you were showing
Swimming.
me that little bit of freestyle swimming. I'm going to need you to do all of that. Like, you can't take somebody out on a date and show them all your good stuff and say, hey, I'm a gentleman. I opened the door. I'm polite. I pay for dinner. I was polite to everyone in the restaurant.
Can't go back.
And then the next day you're like, well, you got your door right. I don't need to be polite anymore. Do you need me to do this?
Yeah.
No, you can't go back to being who you were. So that's the tough thing about growth is it's kind of a one-way street, right? You got to keep going. And some people, like you say, you can pull people up.
Mm-hmm.
But you can't pull everybody.
Dude, 100%. We talked about this, like increasing your prices when we were trainers. It's like, dude, the moment you break that threshold, you make a commitment that you can never break.
You can't go back. You can't lower your prices now.
You can't lower your prices, one, and you can't stay the same. You actually are now a Rolls Royce, or like you're an appreciating asset. If you're committed to increasing your hourly rate, you can no longer go back, because one of the two things will happen. The moment you don't meet it, you're that's a poop investment. I'm going to get someone that's worth a little bit less, that's doing way more valuable than you are.
Exactly.
And they're going to be appreciated in the process. I think that's one of like the biggest things when people think they just grow. That's why I think we have to add continuous.
Continuous growth. You're constantly growing. You can never pause because everything else is moving around you, right? It's like the craziest thing in the world is if you ever paused at any point in your life. Finances, fitness, everything else keeps moving. And that's the market, right?
Yep.
The person who has $1 million in the bank, who doesn't touch it, he just leaves it there, is going to be behind the person that puts $1 million in the market, and it grows that much every day. You will always be behind. So again, you got to constantly be investing in yourself. And the simple one you talk about, like with your son, is like books, communicate, podcasts.
Yeah.
For me,
that's
like
how he makes money.
Yeah, that's how he makes money. Like the best thing is ever, his communicating, because that's going to be his thing.
Dude, that was something that we didn't get. It was like, don't talk to strangers. I was like, what do you mean? My whole business is talking to strangers.
It's what we do all day.
Right? So it's like, I was like, no, you be nice to people. That creates a contact. If you read books, you're going to get this knowledge that you've never had. And then if you're working out, you have the ability to sustain that type of energy for such a long time, not just because of your physique. Maybe you can make money by modeling or so on and so forth, but that wasn't my intention.
Yeah. So it was so funny because when I mix my finance and my fitness background, I always say, if there's anything I want to understand, it's money and how my body works. Because what was it? There was a quote. I think it was a Tesla quote. Money isn't everything, but it's up there with oxygen. I mean, what are we doing without oxygen? Nothing. What are you doing without money? Nothing. If you're not constantly growing to be worth more, to make more, to earn more around your family, I'm not going to get too financy, but inflation will outpace you.
It will, yeah.
The way it used to be before things changed, it would take 30 years for inflation to outpace you. You know how long it takes now?
I don't know.
Like 8. In 8 years, everything that you are paying for will cost twice as much again.
Oh, gosh.
Are you going to be increasing your value that much? So in 8 years, are you able to maintain, right? And I'm talking maintain, not be able to do more. If you don't increase your worth, you will be just struggling to maintain,
Yeah.
not even be valuable. So that's one of those things where education, I don't care where you get it. The way
Yeah.
we have it now, masterclass,
Yeah.
you can get
YouTube's galore.
YouTube galore. And you know, the greatest thing about YouTube is you can choose
Yeah.
whatever you want to learn about. You can pause it. You can come back to it.
Yeah.
It's a gift. It is the gift that we have. And if someone says, hey, I don't know how, I'll just say, go on YouTube and put that in there.
Yeah.
And I promise you, you'll learn how.
Yeah.
And I don't care what it is. Anything. Put it in there and you'll learn it. And guess what? You may learn that you don't know enough about it to learn it, and you need to go something more professional, right?
Yeah.
That's like coding, right? If you
It's
don't
so
know
good.
coding, go learn it.
So I'm okay about you talking finances because you were one of the more pivotal ones that broke some of my limiting beliefs. Because I was the trainer that was in it for results,
Yeah.
right? And then the moment I started talking about budgeting and profit and loss, you were like, "It's about time, bro."
Finally.
Right? Like, dude, you can't just like go out there and start helping people and expect that you can do it for a very, very long time. And you've changed my philosophy around money multiple times, and you made it okay to talk about, actually, right? Which was like a big thing for me.
Yeah.
And again, that's why you want to surround yourself with really, really amazing people that don't have the same values as you, because you start to you're like, oh, I get it now, right? Money is a representation of how much value I bring in, and if you don't have this, you can't have 20 coaches, Royce. In fact, you got to cut it down to 10.
10, because you can't pay all these people, right? We
Right,
can't have
yeah.
2 gyms if we don't understand how money works, right?
Yeah.
That was what I teach. I teach people how money works.
Yeah.
Financial education, everybody go get it. YouTube will bring it to you.
Mm-hmm.
But if you just know how money works, everything lends into it. We had a whole deep conversation during COVID. You remember it? We had
It's huge.
the whiteboard session we did at your house preparing for it.
Yeah.
And then we backed everything up. And then we went into the money of it. And then we've had multiple hard conversations about coaches
Yeah.
and finances and pay and equality, like all of the things.
Yeah.
But again, I just think it's one of those things we get to talk about. And I say get to
Yeah.
talk about because it's real. If you don't talk about them,
Yeah.
eventually you're not going to be talking about them with anybody, right? Like I used to
Yeah.
joke around with this to a lot of coaches. Coaches would coach for free.
Which is sad, but
It's true.
it's true. Yeah.
But on my side, I only train somebody that I would train for free. I'm going to get paid for it, but I need to enjoy it enough to do it for free.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, you don't pay your bills with hugs and kisses and thank yous.
Mm-hmm.
You have to pay your bills with actual money. So
Yes.
you may enjoy it and you would do it for free,
Mm-hmm.
but you're going to actually need to be paid for it so you can pay for all the things in your life that allows you to go take care of yourself and your family, that allows you to come back and take care of your clients. So if you would, I had a conversation with Nick because he takes care of my wife.
Mm-hmm.
He's scheduling sessions for her, and I said, hey, Nick, how much would it be for you to set up some sessions for my wife? And I said, don't give me the discounted price. Give me the real price.
Yeah.
You're not worth less to me because you're my friend and my coach.
Yeah.
You're worth just as much. He said, yeah, absolutely. I'm like, and when you're ready to increase your prices, let me know.
Right.
I want to pay I want all your value, because if you pay someone for their value, they will then invest in themselves again
Mm-hmm.
and give it right back to you.
Yeah.
You know, my client I work with, foot problem, shoulder problem. What
Yeah.
I do, oh man, it's a new problem.
Yeah.
I get to now research foot and all those things that go around it. Guess what? I just
Yeah.
learned something. His problem
Mm-hmm.
gave me more value.
It is. I think, and then when you do things that are for free, there's no attention,
No attention.
right?
Yeah.
Sometimes I think the transformation happens inside the transaction.
Mm-hmm.
That's why, like, most of the clients that probably have the greatest results are always doing personal training, because they're forking up a lot of their money into it, and they're forced to pay attention.
Yeah.
That's why we've been in 24-hour fitness. I'll share the stat.
Mm-hmm.
Less than 10% show up, or I mean, only 10% show up.
Show up.
Right? And if it was like 20-30%, the model actually can't work because everything will break.
It's too much use on it, right? So we've had that conversation very similar where you think about why you charge so much. And we've had this conversation very directly.
Yeah.
The only reason I charge as much as I do is so
You
you
can pay
care
attention.
about it.
Yeah. I'm
I
good.
absolutely
Yeah.
care about you and your results. But if you put enough financial investment into it, you'll care.
Yeah.
Man, like you have the guy who had this,
Yeah.
I call this beat up Chevy whatever. Nothing against Chevy, right? But if it's an 89 something with rusted doors and this, he probably never vacuums his car out. He doesn't care about what's in it. But that person now buys a car that's a little nicer.
Yeah.
Are they going to care about it a little more?
100 times.
100 times
Way
more.
more.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
I think live everything like that. Put all the intention and everything into yourself.
Yeah.
Like you are like a Benz. Invest in your Benz. Keep your Benz clean. Make sure your Benz always gets an oil change. When it needs to get serviced, you go take it. If it needs to not be driven hard today, don't drive it hard.
Yes.
Because this is a luxury automobile. And I think we are...
It is, yeah.
We're Mercedes. We're Ferraris. We are Lambos, right? We are whatever you want to, consist of yourself. But as coaches, I think that you can compare yourself to something like that you need to take care of.
Yeah, and geez, man, I want to kind of relay back to that growth pain. Every time you approached me about money and what it actually means, it's always painful because your beliefs are it's you. And literally you're like breaking these things, and breaking doesn't feel good. Right? Like, what is money supposed to mean? And like, if I put myself into this price point, what does that mean for me? And it's just like breaking all of these beliefs around is so pivotal. And then the way you get that is through growth.
Yep.
Actually, naturally, I think as you start to continue to grow, you will eventually tap into that money growth conversation at some point.
Oh, absolutely. So, and this is the sometimes coaches who aren't willing to raise their prices or don't want to charge so much, don't believe in themselves enough because they haven't grown enough into the person who they want to be.
Exactly.
Right? I'm not worth that. I haven't learned enough yet. I can't charge that much.
Yeah.
I know and am confident that I know everything I need to help you right now. And if I don't know it right now, I'm willing to work hard enough to find out.
And you'll spend those 10, 20, 30 hours to figure it out.
Working on it, right? I know that that's who I am. Perfect.
Yeah.
This cost is cost, right? Cost is whatever it is. And I use cost as cost with my wife as a person who cares about money, understands money, works with people's money. When I go to stores and buy stuff and going out to dinner and stuff like that, I don't really look at the price of something, not because I'm, just throwing money around, but if you want it, well, and this is the other side. If you want it, you were going to buy it anyway. So it doesn't matter how much it costs.
Right. So
just make sure that you actually have earned it or worked for it or all those little things. But if it's a, if it's a 4-week class and the 4-week class costs $4,000, okay, do you want that class? Do you need that class? Is that class going to help you? Then it doesn't matter how much the class costs.
Yeah.
It will come back to you.
More than you realize.
More than you realize. But the reason they have to charge for that class is so when you show up, you pay attention.
Yeah. Brian Tracy was like, I think it was like every dollar that I spend gave me $7 back. It was like 7x.
Yeah.
Right. So that's what growth is. It's like you're throwing it into yourself and you don't even know what it's going to return. But dude, it always returns way more than you realize.
It's compound. It's the compounding interest, just like how money works, right? And I think about it, and I use those scales, but think about growth, 6 months, 8 months, 9 months, 10 months, growing, but eventually pop, explode. That's how growth works. This thing, and it's like how most plants grow. They grow under the ground before they grow up, and all of a sudden, boom.
They're like, oh, it's a one-hit wonder.
You're like, no, this guy's been grinding. Like, and I'm sure Coach Nick went that, but we've had this conversation. I have to give him so many props because he has grown so
Yeah.
much.
He's still growing.
And he's still growing,
Yeah.
but we have had that conversation. Hey, think about who you used to be and who you are now. That growth is
It's remarkable.
awesome.
Mhm.
It's amazing. And we'll do anything to support his growth,
Mhm.
but at the same time, because he's grown so much, I will pay anything for him to take care of my wife.
Mhm.
He's going to take care of not one, her physical, but two, her emotional.
So good, yeah.
It's the connection he's going to get. And I know that he's invested a time. We've had a conversation this last couple of weeks
Mhm.
where we've adjusted our coaching schedule because Nick's growing.
Yeah.
He's literally in the process of growing right now. And what we did,
Yeah.
okay, guess what? We've invested in our coaches and our energy. Hey, we need you to make a change. I need you to do this. Can you do
Yeah.
this? I think we can do it. Hey.
He's growing, and he's growing out in another
Yeah.
direction because he's
Yeah.
been working for so many other companies.
Yeah.
That's the other side. If your company is not growing internally, they're going to grow out.
Yeah.
I think that's like another thing. You create these values internally. You're along for a ride.
Mhm.
Like, you can choose your values. There's nothing wrong with complacency. That could be one of your values for your thing, but you just got to you got to understand everyone that you're going to be attracting is going to be
that person, right?
Right?
Know
Yeah.
who you are attracting, right? What are you putting out in the universe? And like we said,
Mhm.
you are the sum of those 5 people that you hang around with most.
100%.
And that's a tough conversation for some people because then they're like, oh no,
Yeah.
who do I hang out with the most? And that's okay. Just recognize who those people are. And I love my 5.
Mhm.
I love when my 5 changes.
Yeah.
I love when I bring somebody else in. I don't ever feel like anybody disappears, but people are in your life for reasons or seasons, right?
Yes.
And sometimes amazing reasons.
Mhm.
Sometimes it's for amazing seasons,
Mhm.
but sometimes it's for life. And
I love
you've
it.
been in my life, and we've been in our lives since I want to say it's close to 12 years almost.
Yeah.
That
was before you had the gray hairs.
before
on
the gray
chins.
hair, before you met your wife.
I
We
think
were
can you
just.
see mine? I have,
I
like,
see
one or
that
two.
little
I'll
spot,
try to catch
right?
up, bro.
But it's the things where my wife even sent me a picture of baby Royce from back in the
Yeah.
day where, oh my God, look how much we've grown. But physically, we got a little here, but emotionally we're the people who can, 1, have a hard conversation,
Mhm.
2, recover from the conversation, move past it. The next day, the growth shows up right away.
Just like that.
Just like that.
Yeah.
And you're like, did you just take feedback? Accept it,
Mhm.
act on it,
Yeah.
not
emotion.
complain about it.
Yeah.
You're growing. Holy crap,
It's
right?
exciting, yeah.
Yeah.
So, man, I want to sum this up really quick. I want to sum it up with a story because I've been in a few masterminds,
Mhm.
and this particular individual, probably a cajillion worth of assets, and he talked about it. He was generational.
Mhm.
And I was like, man, it must be nice. It must be nice just like giving that money away. And then he was saying a speech that really just like threw me off. And one of the pieces of those sentences that I have right now is like, we don't pass our valuables, we pass our values, because it's those values that get us our valuables.
Mhm.
So like, and that's it. Like, and we've been the way we manage it, that's how we fire people based on the values, and that's how we hire people based on our values, because we know if they carry these 5 values, 80% to 90% to even 99%, they're not only going to be successful, they're going to be so successful that they need to do something more.
Mhm.
And it's been such a pivotal thing. And for those of you guys that are watching this, if you don't have values right now in your coaching community or your coaching team, you have to define that. Those 5 values are almost more important employees than the actual employees we have. And it's
They
been
set
huge.
the standard. The values are your rules and regulations. This is whenever you go to make a decision as a coach, when you're with our team,
Yeah.
is it,
It's not even competency,
am I
bro.
being no, not, no, if it doesn't, I say if it doesn't pass the curiosity test, just stop.
That's good. Yeah. It's like, I don't even know why we're interviewing. Like, I'm wasting your time. It's not gonna pan out well for you. You're not gonna even have a good experience coaching.
Because we're going to make you so uncomfortable.
Right.
We've had that conversation. We will make you uncomfortable because we will vibrate at
Such a
a
high level.
high level that if you're not vibrating
Yeah.
vibrating with this, you'll vibrate out. And there's nothing wrong with it.
Still love you.
But it is an uncomfortable room to be in if
Mm-hmm.
you're not ready to vibrate like that.
That's so true.
So
Yeah, I love it. So James, geez, we just summed up all those 5 parts. Hopefully we have enough memory usage there, right? So guys, this is going to be one of those podcasts you have to replay again probably a few times because this is 2 decades of work because we didn't have those. Like Baby Royce wasn't curious, definitely wasn't collaborating at a high level, right? Maybe courageous, right? But definitely didn't have self-care, didn't have continuous growth, right? I was just playing video games all day as soon as I was done training. It's a lot different. But dude, I'm pumped that you were here. I'm excited to kind of do a little bit more. Guys, this guy right here in front of me has a wealth of knowledge. He's constantly teaching me a bunch of things and vice versa. I really want to unpack a lot more of those things over time. And dude, thank you so much
thank
for
you,
coming
brother.
in.
I appreciate you.
Guys, if you haven't yet already, if you got any value from this conversation, make sure to share, make sure to subscribe, comment if you like Royce's beard better than James's beard. But as always, I'll see you guys soon. Peace.